All right, it's 3:01. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I will open this up with a word of prayer if you'll bow your heads and pray with me. Father, thank you so much for this wonderful city and those volunteers who serve the city along with the city staff to make decisions on behalf of this board and this community. Thank you so much for all they do. Let us ever be mindful of you and the decisions that we make. For it's in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Item number 1 is Visitors and Citizens Forum, and I do not have anybody that has registered with me. Citizens knows for that. Item number 2 is approval of minutes, and it would be minutes from the June 5th of 24 meeting. You should have gotten those in your packets. So I'll be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve in a second. Any changes or additions to those? I hear none. All those in favor, raise your right hand. And those minutes are approved unanimously. Item number 3 is information and discussion. I guess Mr. Paxton's going to bring us up to speed on the 2050 comp plan and update us on that.
I'll keep it real brief. This public survey is still open until tomorrow. If you've not taken that survey or your families, please go take that today. And we've had, I think I checked Friday, we had almost 400 responses so far. So the next date important for you guys, October 23rd, will be the Downtown Advisory Committee, which is the Tirz board, plus one from Main Street and one from Historic Downtown Business Association. We'll have a Downtown Advisory Committee meeting, a Comp Plan Advisory Committee meeting, which is Planning and Zoning Commission, and a public event that evening. So it'll be a full day on October 23rd. Of course, you guys will be the downtown portion. You're welcome to attend the rest. But we'll have that, more information coming on that soon, once we get those timelines figured out, scheduling all 3 of those meetings.
So the surveys are available to all citizens that are within the city limits, or is the survey only available to those inside the Tirz?
Anyone interested in Kerr County or in Kerrville?
Okay.
So there are some demographic questions. Do you live in the city? Do you work in the city? Are you just interested in Kerrville? So it really is open to anybody, partly to keep it anonymous, so we can't restrict people from taking it. There are a specific section of questions for downtown. We did use the Tirz boundary just to kind of dial citizens into what areas we're looking at. So there's a handful of questions specifically on downtown, some for the Nimitz Lake area plan, and then of course, general city and general demographics questions. It took me about 10 or 15 minutes to take it. So
Is there a link to that survey on Facebook or?
Facebook or the city webpage,
Okay.
or you can go to kerrville2050.com.
So is it a survey that is broad for the entire 2050 update or just the downtown piece?
The entire 2050 update with one section specific to downtown. So the consultants will take that information and start compiling community priorities so we can start working through that over the next several months.
Sounds good.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Got it. So that's a date of 10/20, and so I know that the new board will be convened at some point after 9:30, since the terms of 4 of the board members expire on 9:30. So I'm sure there's some things we need to do to get people assigned at some point to the 10/20 meeting. So
Sorry, October 23rd.
23rd. Okay.
So currently, we had a discussion about it last time, about resignations and do we want folks to come in early, and staff was discussing that, the timing of it is starting in October, so it's not something that they need to, come in early for as a part of that discussion because the comp plan folks won't be there. I know we've received an application from one person who's on council, and I think probably will be asked to serve on the board because there's going to be 4 vacancies, and so we are going to have 3 others. So we have it out. We'll have to push it out again and keep having conversations. As you know, sometimes it's hard to get folks to come onto the boards, and this one is, meeting a little less frequently than all the rest. And so, but our push is that it's going to have a lot more activity in the next coming year and years to come. So,
Sure.
what I think we plan to do is I think we asked for that to be on the agenda for the 11th of September. And that way those folks who get voted in, if we have a meeting in September, which I think wouldn't be a bad idea, they can be in attendance. They won't be a member of the body yet, but they can be at the meeting. And then go through any questions. And then further down in y'all's agenda, talked about the board procedures. So something that y'all can have in place prior to them coming on. So they have that guideline that y'all didn't get, right, when you started. So
I'd just bring that up so the three of you guys can kind of start thinking about what that looks like. Because I won't be here. So, anyway. All right. That gets us through item 3A. 3B is a proposed engineering design scope and fee for a roundabout at the intersection of Shriner Street and Clay Street.
if you don't mind, I think our
Sure.
printer jammed while we were
Uh-oh.
printing all that stuff
Okay.
out. So if you don't mind, we can go to 4 and do the budget, and then
We'll do
I'm gonna
that,
check
and we'll
on
come
them
back
and
to
see what the
3B.
deal is and be right back.
Very good. So we'll move on to 4. 4A is the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, Tirz number 1, proposed budget for fiscal year 2025.
Awesome. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Jacob Bogish. I'm the Finance Compliance Coordinator here at the city.
Welcome.
And today I will be presenting the financial update along with the Kerrville 2025 proposed budget for the Tirz. So jumping straight in, I wanted to include this slide basically to show the difference in values captured from year to year. The base value being 97 million. FY 2024 was 157 million, and FY 2025, 156 million. So there was a small slight decrease in valuation, primarily due to Kirkhead settlement of one large property dispute, in addition to exempt property addition. So in 2024, like the city, Tirz saw a substantial increase in new value. And FY 2025, a little bit of a decline in new value, but still new value added. The certified roll showed that there are 588 properties within the Tirz, and there are currently 1 unsettled protest. Moving on, I'd like to briefly highlight the property tax increments collected year over year, as well as that graph to the bottom right, which shows the overall citywide property tax assessed valuation history. And as you can notice, there's about a 13% increase from FY 2022 to FY 2023. So lastly, jumping into the financial update and FY 2025 proposed budget. In FY 2024, y'all begin the year with a beginning estimated fund balance of $328,000. You had received, we expect you to receive an estimate of $335,000 in property tax revenue and $24,000 in interest revenue. And then, of course, y'all know about the $50,000 in expenses to transfer out to general capital projects for that comprehensive plan update of the downtown region. So that puts your estimate ending fund balance at $637,000. And then moving on to the FY 2025 proposed budget, property tax being $339,000, interest revenue being $26,000, bringing your total revenues to about $365,000. Currently, there are no project commitments for 2025, so therefore we have no budgeted expenditures, leaving your ending fund balance for 2025 just over $1 million. So jump into next steps. Tirz board to consider and approve the budget as presented. And then city council will consider the Tirz 1 budget in September when they consider the citywide budget. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Can you go back to the slide with the graph on it?
Yes, sir.
And it just looks odd to me that from 19 to 20 is an increase, and from 20 to 21 is an increase, and then it falls in 22. I understand the significant increases in 23 to 24, but we fall all the way back down in our percent increase below where we were in the years of, that's pretty close to 19. What,
So we actually added this kind of at the last, because when we were looking at revenue jumps from one year to the next, and what, as my eyes looking through it, I'm thinking, hey, that's a significant jump in revenue there. What happened? And so this is actually on the citywide, because we had this put together already. And so, for one thing, 2021, that's right after implementation of Senate Bill 2. So when the property tax law changed there, and there were a lot of pressures on appraisal districts to bring housing up to, or properties in general, up to market value. So we had a pretty big increase in valuations when you look at percent change. And then we had, that drop, and I actually checked this yesterday because I saw that drop in 2022 before I did budget last night. It caught my eye again, and I looked, and it is right that we had a big jump there right after Senate Bill 2, and then I can't tell you whether it was COVID related or what, but then we saw that not necessarily a decrease in valuations, we still had an increase, just a smaller increase in percentage. And then we had that other big one in 23, and we were talking about this morning, backing up a couple of years and talking to Sharon at Kirkhead. In 23, they had a shift in the way they evaluate, or value, I should say, multifamily, hotels, commercial properties. And so we saw a pretty big increase, to the point to where in 2023, I had her send me a list of every property within the Tirz to say, why do we see this big increase in value? And so we looked at it property to property to say, where was it? And it is commercial. It's heavily commercial in 22 to 23 in jumps in value. And so you're not seeing anything that we didn't talk about earlier. And we didn't have one specifically for the Tirz built out, but I'm like, hey, throw in the citywide, because it really does tell the story of what values have done over time. And when you look at that 51,000 jumping all the way to 300,000, and what we're seeing now is it level, because at this year 338, next year 339, we're kind of seeing a leveling, and we saw increase this year in the city of a little less than 5%. And so that's compared to 10 last year, 13 before. And so we're hoping that maybe that's some market stabilization happening there. Because I think everything just hit us at one time in 21 and 22, with just values went up and inflation went up, and, Senate Bill 2, and then a whole bunch of other things that happened that affected the value. So we're hoping we'll see some stabilization in the next couple of years. I don't know if that completely answers it, but you're asking the same exact questions we asked when we were looking through it, and like, what do we have that kind of supports why you see that variation there?
So what was our proposed, I know it was certainly just a model that was created when we originated Tirz. What was the percentage on average of increase, and are we staying within that, or are we above that?
That's a good question. I'll have to go back and look and see what that finance plan has, and I think we talked about that last time. I'll go back and look at that presentation as far as what their overall expectations were of this, the Tirz to generate in general, and I want to say it was about 30 million. But let me go back and look, and I'm not going to speak to value, but just in revenue generation over that 30-year period of time. But I'll go back and look at that, because there was an estimation whenever they created this Tirz. Now, I would expect that will probably be more than we anticipated, because back up prior to 2020, we were seeing about 4 to 4.5% property tax valuations increase, and then you have that big jump. If it stabilizes, and we count on seeing 300,000 a year, I gave you, I think, a 10 or 15 year cash flow to what that would look like, just based, and I think I used a 3% valuation, because you don't know, being conservative, and I don't know what that ending was, but I can get you that. I don't know what that is right
I just wondered if you
that's
knew
curious.
if we were above average or below. Is really what
That's a good question. We can definitely circle back to that. So I don't know if that helps at all, but you're asking the same questions that, the obvious one, when you see that percent decline there.
Okay.
The projected revenue for the life of the Tirz is 17 million, just over 17 million, based on the plan from.
So I'd have to do the math on where we are compared to where we're going to end to see what that is. If we look at, give or take 350,000 a year.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I just wondered if going forward you ever adjusted that, or if that plan originated and it just stays like it is.
So that's a good question too, and we talked about this earlier. So that plan has to stay unless this board makes a decision to adjust that, because if we adjust either how the money gets spent, of course the law dictates, but based on the initial setup, or we change any part that it's substantial and material to the financial project, then we have to refile that with the comptroller, which we can update if we think that's necessary. But that's a good question, being just, 4 or 5 years in, how are we looking compared to?
Right. And part
what
of
the
my
prospectus was.
reasoning is, what if it is that we feel like this project, we could participate in, but it would have to be staged out over several years?
Right.
Would we have the money to do that, whatever that might be in
Right,
the
and I
future?
think that on the cash flow, I gave you 2 models, like one with what if we did some projects and one if not, just so you could
Right.
see what does the savings look like over time and what ultimately do we want our dollar to be? Because we wanna contribute X to this project, either one time or multi-year, so that you could then earmark some dollars and bring that fund balance down naturally, so that you would know kind of what you can spend from one year to the next. That makes sense?
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Looking at the spreadsheet from the original
Mhm.
creation, at the end of 2024, the cumulative total in the Tirz fund was projected to be $264,000.
So substantially more. And that can be attributed back to exactly what we just talked about, that basically.
But if we, I don't know that I've been around, maybe I have and just didn't know it, when valuations went down.
I haven't,
Never, ever since I've been in Kerrville in 16
Mm-mm.
years, seen valuations go down
no.
or taxes go down. They've always gone up. And so if we are on this trend and it's higher than it would be, then our projected balance would
Right.
be
And
bigger.
we might need to look at revising
that's
that
a
financing
reason.
plan, and that's an option, and we have looked at what does that look like, whether you change what you wanna spend money on, that we just
Right.
update that finance plan but we can certainly look at that as we adjust cash flow going forward, because we look at that from a model, but, really, to be honest, haven't compared it back to what the original plan
Probably no
was.
reason to do the original over, but anyway.
No, but I mean, it can be modified pretty simply, so, that would, in my mind, be more from an expenditure side, if we wanted to spend money outside of what the original guidelines were, or something like that.
Gotcha.
But
So-
values haven't gone down. What we see is the total volume of sales goes down,
Right.
but we don't really see the values go down.
Right, and we did that kind of exercise just to see what those jumps in value were year over year, and interestingly enough, 24 is like 49% higher than it was in 2019, just on the value, just total property tax valuation, but then, there's so many other factors in play right now, we really don't know, is it the economy driving, is it SB2 part of it, is it the state? There's so many, so we're hoping to see some stabilization this year, because it sure makes it easier to budget going out this and for the city. If it's stable, we kind of know, well, it's about 3 to 4% every year. You can sure do a future projection a lot easier.
We'll say that statewide, the projections for Tirz that are built around built environments, and most of them have a lot of the same goals, to reinvigorate downtowns. And if you get a downturn in some of these economies, so I was city manager in Palestine, and there were some depressed valuations on some of that stuff. This town benefits from not having that issue. And so that's part of the reason why you can't obligate yourself to funds that you don't have, because you're not guaranteed that those valuations are going to be there in the following years.
Sure.
So it's kind of like each year, there can be the appropriation, but like Julie was saying, we have to have the money in the bank, either through a bond for a project, for us to participate in that multi-year deal. If it's a $2 million project and y'all have $1 million, you can't obligate that future funds to that without it already being in the bank.
Right, but there are other ways to,
The council can obligate it
Incentivize.
and then get
So-
paid back through it, through Tirz obligations. I mean, there's certainly a lot of different ways to get it done.
So we'll keep working on that cash flow, just so as y'all set goals, you know what you want the cash to be in the bank, so that, you may want to do a big project and save, or you may want to say, we're going to earmark X each year and the rest is going to save, or, really each board will be a little bit different as far as what they dictate. But I think that's kind of where that reserve fund, what do we want that to look like, just for preservation purposes, and, every board's going to be a little bit different.
Thank you.
any other questions?
Kenneth, I do have the original projections with me if you want to see.
It was a general question, and it was going to my kind of thought that values probably don't very often go down unless you've got a deterioration in an area of a community that causes that, but, anyway. just in general, that these projections going forward are always gonna increase. That was really, it was for conversation more than anything. So we do need if we don't have any more questions, we do need a motion to approve the budget as presented for 25.
I'll
So-
make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. That motion carries unanimously. All right, you want to jump back to 3B?
We can. Yes,
All right, very good. You've got it.
All right, Martin's gonna pull up a little schematic of what we have already been provided years ago. Actually got this one from Mr. Stone. And you also have in front of you the presentation for the original cuts plan in front of you. This started out as a project that didn't have funding for it. When we got the preliminary costs from the engineer, not a full engineering analysis of it, it was beyond the scope of what would fit in the general fund budget, and Tirz didn't have dollars attached to it at that point. But we talked about bringing back engineering fees and seeing what the scope of that would be for the actual design and construction documents for this. Those have been included in your packet. This is just a discussion item. So what I'd like to do for all of us moving forward is that, you got a breakdown of projects that are currently ongoing and projects that we'd like to see. I think we want to bring that back every time so that these things don't become surprises, because nobody wanted to have to say yes to let's do this right now and let's do this right now. That is heard loud and clear, and we want to avoid that at all costs. And so I think we have a plan in the works. You all came up with a plan as well for kind of your procedures. So for this one, wanted to give you guys a chance to read through that summary statement from 6S. The design, it's about $55,000 is the scope of that. It would give us a much more detailed version of this. You see kind of the breakdown of what they're looking to do. And so get the temperature of the board here, and if there's kind of an appetite for wanting to look at this, we would then take this back to council and say, would y'all like to approach Tirz to fund this? Now, again, I'm never sure if I'm going to get the chicken or the egg right with who to ask first, but I think what I'm going to tell council is that we're going to show a bunch of things to Tirz as it moves forward, and they're the body for you all to give advice on what they want to see in the Tirz district. So this is the first kind of concrete design plan that we have for now. So with that, I will turn it over for any questions you have about it. It's fairly, I don't want to say basic engineering, but it is a roundabout. It's got some challenges. This is a challenging little piece of property with some drainage areas, especially directly across the street from your space. We have just an open drain hole, and when it floods, all the things from Doyle coming down Hay Street turns over there, turns down there, hits that little area, and Mr. Stone's had some, and Mrs. Stone have had some of that overflow into theirs. Work's had to be done on the entrance to their parking lot, so you see that hump when you go to Rails, right? And so we have acquired all the easements for it, but that was also in an effort to get this project done, not in perpetuity. And so this would be the first step, is to get this part done. So 6S is a good group. We work with them on a lot of our street projects, and we like the work that they do.
Am I reading this right? It's 94,000 for the whole
thing.
for the whole thing.
Whole thing.
Whole
And so
roundabout, drainage, everything.
what we would ask for is solely the design. So they provide, when the engineers bring this to you, they provide you with, okay, if you guys want to do this, here's the engineering design component, and then here's the bidding phase, and then here's the construction administration phase. So those would be add alternates that we would come back to later and say, okay, does this still apply for bidding phase? Because if it comes back and it's $1.2 million, we got to go out and figure out, okay, where's all that money going to come from? And so there's probably a pretty significant delay between design,
Okay.
and then you may have a year between bidding and construction or more. And so those figures won't be the same, So it would just be the design portion, so it'd be that 55. It is 55.
51, or
50,700.
50,700, I'm sorry. Yeah, so additional services and bid and construction phase, they all come back as just add alternates if and when the time comes. A lot of times we have design for projects that they're still sitting, so.
So you said that we really didn't have this as a project that was front and center at this point. With going through and getting the engineering done, does it move it up in the pecking order, or?
Not necessarily, because, I mean, it certainly, it depends on where the funding is gonna come from, obviously, right? If it's gonna come from street maintenance funds, then we have a list of here's streets that are deteriorated throughout the city and different grade levels and different levels of use. And those are ranked, and typically we have, $2.5 million, I think, right now in this budget for street maintenance. Is that right? About that?
2.2,
2.2, okay, and that'll get us through so many streets. So as you imagine, if this is $1 million project, let's say, even if it's a $500,000 project, that ends up being a quarter of the overall city street budget. So it probably wouldn't rise to that level necessarily. But if we had, it helps that if Tirz is interested in pursuing this project and putting dollars towards it, or if EIC is considering, wants to consider that, it makes it a little easier to fit them in. But just as a standalone project, if the Tirz board didn't exist and we had the engineering done for this, and we had to look at all the things that we had to do, I don't know that it makes that cut citywide.
Right.
Right. And not because it's not a great project, just because of, priority of needs. Yeah.
So, is this a good possibility of a public-private kind of partnership to raise money to do this? And, the engineering piece could eventually be part of that, or
Oh, yeah.
am I dreaming?
No, you're not. You're not.
I'm trying to figure out why now, and why not wait until we're a little further down the road and put it on the project list, and I'm just asking questions.
Well, part of it is we don't know how much it would be.
Okay,
Because we have to engineer it before we could get any kind of cost estimate on it.
gotcha.
And so for the streets, we kind of do as much as we can with the funding that we've got. And if we've got some savings, then we go and find some more and do a little extra. But for a project like this, if there's an undetermined amount, it wouldn't get included
Okay.
because we just don't know. And it's a little more specialized than a street design, because street design is it's a little more generic.
And Cuts is a separate entity from the city of Kerrville, correct?
Yes, it is.
Do they have funding of any kind?
Any kind, yes.
I mean,
To the extent that it would help cover the cost of construction for any of these things, no, ma'am.
okay.
Typically that's not, if we source out additional funding for street public utility projects, it's through Economic Development Corporation, the state of Texas, the federal government, those kind of entities. It
Okay.
wouldn't be usually it's not through local groups. Cuts did, they pay for that. The design of that, it's kind of in the scope of it. So you're looking at things that are in a big raise, because it's probably $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, helping to pay for the murals that get put out. But once you start getting into, it'd be great, obviously, but I don't think there's an expectation that you get private donations for
Right.
those kind of big public projects. I would love it. Oh, man. Nobody, like you said, paying for sewer is not really
Yeah, it's not very.
it's not why you get on the board. Yeah, it's not sexy.
Well, so it sounds like to me that there is a need to at least know what the project costs, and then that might help it get pushed forward. But if we don't
Yes, sir.
do this, and correct me if I didn't hear you right, if we don't do this, it's gonna sit there for a while.
It will, because it's really hard to know what that estimate is. And, when we did, as an example, we looked at the Calu Theater roof. And when we talked about how much that thing would cost, you know, you're looking at it and you're talking about it, and we're not structural roof engineers and any of that, and we kind of put a swag at it at $1.5 million. That'd be a big number. And when the engineers and the architects came back, it was $2.9 million.
Wow.
So that's such a big delta. And so we like to have a little more. There'll be contingencies in there. Typically, you'll get anywhere between 20 and 30% contingencies for some of that stuff. And hopefully they're right on the money. But I don't trust it for us to just say.
Is Tirz being asked for the $50,700 to pay for the engineering design, so we know how much it costs? Is that correct?
Well, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, yes, ma'am. Yep.
And actually, we're just gonna,
I just
Let
want to
you
get your
know if-
temperature.
yeah, if we have an interest in funding this, they're gonna go talk to the council, because I
Right.
think council would ask for the money from us.
And then we'd come back to y'all at the next meeting and kind of go through that formal process of.
So is there any issue with safety at all with its current configuration? And is there any means to make it priority for that fixing the safety issue? I thought I heard maybe it was kind
I w-
of problematic.
Someone who drives through there at least 3 days a week. I've never gotten hit. I've had to gun it a few times.
Yeah.
It's just there are not good sight lines, and because Shriner Street, even though it curves, you can go pretty fast. And you have that. I think this is where it is, that beer barn right there. You can't see around it. So I don't know if there have been wrecks.
I think Mr. Stone
But
said that
but
there had been.
there have been more than one occasion at 8:10 in the morning where I've had to really gun it. Or I've decided not to try to go across, just go ahead and turn right and not try to make it across that intersection.
That whole street segment between where we're talking about the roundabout and 16, I mean, everything is up, it's against the road in some places, and that's, you know, you never want to do that way. I agree with those sentiments, right? If I had to look at accidents through the PD reports, there's going to be some in there. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons to do it.
Okay.
For sure. And I think if there's, you know, assistance with with the funding towards it, maybe from a few different groups, and I think a lot of them are city groups, you know, EIC, you all, council. I think we can get closer, that's for sure, once we know that number.
What's our interest?
Well, I will go on record saying I do not like roundabouts. I've never liked them, but this one I think would have some utilitarian value. So, I mean, I would be in favor of it simply because I think it has, at least seeing what it would cost. And if the cost is prohibitive, then it's not going to happen regardless. I think we put some in the city that I just still can't figure out why the hell we did it. But this one, at least I would understand why we did it.
Yeah.
If you're talking about River Hill, we can have a couple of drinks and we
Okay.
can all day.
I'm not calling any names, but.
No, I mean, the constraints of that particular area, because we're the government and we don't want to create takings from folks, and there are limitations on what it could be. Certainly make this one a little bit harder, but it'd be a good one to fix.
Move forward? No? We're not gonna vote on it.
We're just talking.
Yeah.
No, I've always liked the idea of the traffic circle here, and I am a proponent of traffic circles, and the ones in River Hill weren't done well,
Right.
and so they don't function right, but the one at Gulf Street works really well.
I agree with that. All right, I think the consensus is let's move forward, so if you want to present that to council, it'll probably come back
Okay.
positively.
Good deal.
Very exciting game of telephone we play.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's the way it works.
It is the way it works. Yes, sir. All right, thank you. Well, I don't know when our next regularly scheduled meeting is.
I do.
Please. It's in October, so if,
No, it's,
Why did I write down September 11th?
December,
so what I would propose in this
December,
case
March,
is
June,
that
August.
you all set up a date for a September meeting.
Okay,
Because for some of you, this is going to be the last vote you get to make for a while, and it's it's kind of the first big project vote. So I'd like y'all to get a chance to do that. So I guess before we're done
yeah.
with the meeting,
So what is, your calendars like? We'll just do it now for that Wednesday.
So I wrote down September 11th. Did someone say that I put September 11th meeting? Was that talked about at some point? Did I imagine that?
No, you didn't imagine that.
Okay.
Drew, is that part of the comp plan stuff or?
That was October 23rd. I wrote that date down as well.
I don't know.
You heard it, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No,
No, it's not a
that's a
council day.
Wednesday.
That's the 10th. I have the 4 meetings that we proposed was once a quarter last time, and as needed in December, March for financial report, June if needed, and August for budget. But certainly special call as needed.
So let's, tentatively do that, and then if we'll reach out and get a yes or no for attendance
Yeah.
in front of that.
I-
If not, we'll
I
move it
will-
around, but,
I will be flying
do
back in on the 11th.
Okay.
I
so
don't,
you won't be here.
well, I'm not sure.
Are you available the 18th?
Yes.
Uh,
I mean, I don't
September
know what
18th?
time, I don't know what time I'm flying back in yet, so. But if the meeting was a 4 o'clock meeting, that might still work for me.
Okay. Let's just do that then. If you don't mind, poll the board, give us another week or so, and then poll all 5 and see who can and can't
For the 11th.
for the 11th. And if we can't do the 11th, we could maybe suggest, and I don't know what the calendar is like for this room for the 18th, but
We can put a hold on it for both weeks for the hour and a half or 2 hours. Yeah.
and we'll have that just be the one thing to talk about.
45 minutes.
Well, yeah, beginning at
Said we
3.
do have a new 5th member, correct?
No,
No.
you have an applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, so the council is we want to leave that out there for a little while because we do have to get 3 more. So talk to some more folks, see if they'll be interested. I think we have another prospect.
Okay.
It's
That's
not
what I
Larry
heard.
Howard, is it?
Huh?
Not Larry Howard, is it?
No, sir, I would never do that to you.
Welcome, Larry.
Very good. That gets us through item 3B. Let's move on to item 4B, which is the creation of the Tirz Go Team. We had this discussion last time, and so Go Team basically would work where it doesn't involve the entire board in discussions about projects that we may be asked to fund. And so we did that effectively on EIC. It got, there'll be somebody assigned to that, is how EIC works off of the board. They'll be the liaison basically for the board so that when things of importance are coming forward, we don't hear about it 48 hours in advance of the vote. It can be discussed among board members, individually, and maybe brought up to have a meeting about from someone that is representative of the Go Team. So it doesn't take us 90 days to get to the discussion of a project when a project comes up. It goes faster than that. It really benefits everyone. And the backgrounding of it is done in advance of coming in here. So all the things that is needed to qualify it are already completed.
Okay.
And so we don't have to worry about that. And you get a board member that serves on that to give you insight to it.
So we would have a liaison from Tirz board sitting on EIC and vice
Well,
versa? No?
It depends.
No, you guys you'd almost have you'd have your own go team.
Okay.
Right, and so it'd be pretty informal. I mean, if you had, 2 members and staff to kind of meet up if some project's coming down and we want to get a blush at it from the go team
Okay.
to say, please bring this forward, or
Not
God,
just
no, you're
have
so far off the
somebody
mark.
make a presentation and we're all wide-eyed like, what are we talking about? Where'd this start? you know, and the Go team would have the capability of having the wide eyes and then, you know, flesh it out from there. That's the point.
And that gives us,
Do you guys want to implement that is the real question, I guess, right?
yeah, and usually all these projects are gonna, not all of them. A lot of those projects are gonna be economic development requests from folks for grants to spruce up their businesses, do some other stuff. But if they're infrastructure projects, they'll require engineering, almost in all cases. And so it's not a hard thing for us to go get a scope for a project. And so when it comes in, we can have that information there as well. So the Go team said, yeah, this is something I think we'd been interested in. It's not a hard thing for them to bring it, to pull up a scope for a project that will eventually make, you know, if not at that time.
And the Go team has no authority, so they can't do anything other than, you know, be a buffer.
Yeah.
That's up to us. Do we want to create that?
I think so. Yeah, I think it would make the entire board more efficient and effective if we had that information.
I'm ambivalent on the Go team.
Okay.
I don't see Tirz stuff being the EIC stuff is important. We're bringing in a new business.
Right.
It's contracts that are outside and unrelated or timeline, have a big timeline and stuff. And our stuff is really a slower pace that isn't really driven from that outside, you know. So I'm ambivalent. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I don't want to stand in its way.
My experience has been when this balance gets to those numbers, there'll be more people coming with requests.
That may
And
be.
therefore, we'll be spending hours in this meeting going through requests. Whereas the Go team could have kind of fleshed them out and come to us with more of an abbreviated look.
That's a great
at the
insight.
things. So, set it up now for the future. Doesn't mean they have to meet.
That's true
until it's-
too.
Till it's time.
EIC does it as needed and brings in the appropriate folks too. If there's county folks involved, then, and it's a county, you know, project that they'll participate in, they're in there, but not always, so.
Alright. So do we have to vote this into existence or just say,
If you want to, you can. I think you're gonna have new board members pretty soon. So you have a chance to do it then when, you know, like, I would imagine if you ask Bruce, he might not say yes.
No, it says consideration and possible action. I think
You
somebody
can.
can make a motion if they want to.
You can, I don't know that, you know, so who is, the three of you are gonna be on the board moving forward, and
Kenneth's
Kenneth,
the only one leaving.
Kenneth, you're gonna be the one that's out, so, it's up to you. You could start it now, or you could wait until it's got,
I think we can vote to implement it, and then when the new board members get here and you get your full 7, y'all can decide who's gonna serve on it.
Sure.
You wanna make a motion then?
I'd love to make a motion
Do we have a motion to implement the Go team?
Second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. And that motion carries unanimously. I couldn't see Fred's hand, but yeah, thank you.
so I guess in October, if we have a meeting in October, when the new board's there, we'll have that as an agenda item to nominate 2 members to the Go team.
Great. All right, and then item 4C is the board procedures, and so let's see if we. I looked at them online and
And I brought back kind of the same outline as I did last time, but we don't have to go through all that. I provided you with a red line copy, just based on your feedback. The only thing that I would add here, since you've implemented the Go team, is maybe a bullet just saying, you know, at what meeting that you're going to appoint that member. Is it gonna be annual, you know, or those 2 members, how is that gonna be created? Just so it's within the procedure. But everything else that, I sent this out and just made the changes that, you recommended last time. So we can, of course, update that, or anything to this, and this can be kind of a living document since it'll just be adopted and we can revise it as needed. And we haven't created an application yet. I was kind of waiting just to see how this meeting went, but we can certainly look at that. Michael and I will get together and see kind of how we do EIC and what that looks like, and then what does that look like to the public, and what's the application in general need to contain, and we can bring that back to you at a later date.
Any discussion?
I move that we approve the proposed procedures as
Motion to approve the procedures as presented.
Second.
Have 2 seconds. Take your pick.
the lady.
Any further discussion or any changes to this?
Do you want to put a date for appointment of Go Team? Or does, Michael, is that going to be within Go Team? Is it going to be separate, or does it need to be in this? Because they want to have it, but do we need to say, new members annually, every other year, as needed, appoint in October?
I don't think you need to put it in the procedures. I think
You elect the
vice president, president, vice president, and
board, you could do it at the same time.
yep, we'll just do it annually.
Go team. All right, no other changes? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, raise your right hand. And that motion passes. Those are our new
I'll make those final
proposed
edits and
procedures.
send that out to you guys.
Very good. All right, I don't know that we have any reason to go into executive session.
Don't want to talk about Mr. Howard. Catherine wants to dish on him.
So I think we've discussed items for future agendas, and we've set some dates there. I don't think we need to go over anything in that. Any other items? All right, we are adjourned. It's 3:48. Thank you for your time.